This is Bill coming at you from the Ninth Circle, here tonight with an entry into to celebrate Dennis from Analog Archives, his 2,000 subscriber contest. I'm sure you know Dennis's channel if you're watching this. Super cool movie and music channel. He shows a lot of old school death metal, thrash, hardcore punk, usually all original vinyl and cassette copies, CD copies. So really awesome dude, great collection. Cheers to you, Dennis. Well deserved, 2,000 copies here. Let me turn down the tunes a little bit, we'll get to that here. So what we are listening to tonight, Krolak, At the End of an Age. This is the Slovakian black metal band. This is their first EP. Features members of the awesome Malokarpetan. So please check out more of this Krolak. It definitely has that Eastern European feel. Besides somewhat sounding like Malokarpetan, it also does sound a bit like very early Master's Hammer and Rude a little bit in there too. So highly recommended. Krolak, At the Dawn of a New Age. But anyway, Dennis's contest is to show 10 sophomore albums that are as good, if not better, than the debut album by these bands. By any of these bands. So we'll start it off with the vinyl here. We'll go vinyl first. And then I've got half CDs, half vinyl. So anyway, number 1, Warning, Watching from a Distance. This, of course, is a reissue from Spart from a few years ago. I'll take it out here. It's glossy in and of itself. You can see it a little better there. Doom Project. Open it up. You can't really see a whole lot in here. Credits. Very personal, emotional record for Patrick, the main person, Patrick Walker, behind this project. He's also 40 Watt's son is also his current band, but this album is all about basically the dissolution of his marriage and just feelings of isolation and estrangement from someone that he once loved, and just feeling like a part of him has died and that he's watching this person move on with their life as he watches all of that from afar. And it's really a heart-wrenching and emotional record. The first Warning record is quite good too, The Strength to Dream, but I don't know, I always reach for this one, Watching from a Distance. So that is my first pick. Number 2 pick here, one of my favorite records of all time. So this is Integrity with Systems Overload. This is the reissue from last year with the new artwork done by Dwid himself. Comes on a fancy kind of red, black, white splatter vinyl. So Systems Overload, Integrity, I guess. If you don't know Integrity they originally started out as kind of a straight-edge hardcore band. They started in like 1989 in Cleveland, Ohio. But they already from the get-go were much more like dark, apocalyptic take on kind of the straight-edge hardcore thing that was going on. Like Youth Crew was in full swing at that point, and some of their early stuff, there's definitely elements of that, but by this time you could hear a lot of like Slayer in there, a lot of like early like 80s Slayer. I mean, heavily influenced by like Septic Death, Gizm, the Misfits, all that stuff, all mixed in there as well. So, metallic hardcore, one of the best to ever do it. This album, just super apocalyptic, destructive, belligerent. Highly recommended if you like any stuff like Ringworm, or if you like stuff like Catharsis, fucking Pissed Off, Go for the Throat, metallic hardcore. So, Integrity, Systems Overload, that's my number 2 pick. Alright, number 3, of course, a classic, a thrash classic, Carnivore, Retaliation. Not much needs to be said about this record. I'm sure virtually everybody watching this knows. Carnivore was Peter Steele's first band. I'm going to turn this down just a hair. I feel like I'm trying to yell over it. There we go. Peter Steele's first band, Carnivore, which was and again, it's like thrash with like a lot of New York hardcore leanings, because of course, they were from New York City. They were from, I believe, Brooklyn, I think, as I recall. So this, of course, one of the other things, we'll take the back there. You get this cool picture of Pete and the boys there. Mr. Steele right there, his hair much shorter. Of course, it has, the very controversial tracks like Jesus Hitler and things of that nature. USA for USA. Fucking, hilarious stuff like, Ground Zero Brooklyn, fucking Jack Daniels and Pizza, Angry Neurotic Catholics. This is an OG copy of this on Roadrunner. This album came out in, I think it was 1988, I believe. But just savage, angry fucking thrash metal. So Carnivore, Retaliation, one of my favorites too. Great record. The first one, the self-titled record, is great, but that's even better. Okay, that's pick number 3. Pick number 4, another OG vinyl. Pestilence, Consuming Impulse. Again, another record that I think needs no introduction. The first Pestilence record is much more of like a really aggressive thrash record. This sees Pestilence really moving in the death metal vein, of course. This was like something, death metal was a new thing at the time, pretty early on. These guys are from the Netherlands. You've got the cool kind of thrash collage there on the back, but yeah, this is just like really excellent thrashing death metal. Of course, Martin Van Drunen's vocals on this becoming even more hoarse and kind of developing that style that he became known for. Stone Cold classic. It can't be fucking beat. Pestilence, Consuming Impulse, choice number 4. Alright, last piece of vinyl. This one I'm sure will be controversial for some, but this is actually my favorite record by this band, At the Gates, with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness. This, I think, improves on the debut in many ways. Now, I know this band has really fallen out of favor in the last probably 15 years as a result of, Slaughter of the Soul and all the shitty fucking mallcore bands that jumped on the bandwagon and fucking stole and ripped them off, I mean, you can think of probably fucking 20 shitty bands from the early 2000s that started to ride the coattails of At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. But this is an interesting beast because, so you still have Alf Svensson in the band at this point, right? So Alf Svensson has a very bizarre style of riffing. It's very esoteric and alien sounding, mixed with the, and this album also sees the beginning of like a lot of the melodic guitar lines starting to come in. I think you really see, and the production is considerably better, I think, than on the first record. This is recorded at Sunlight Studios, so there's a better idea of what this should sound like. I mean, it has some of my favorite At the Gates songs, like Raped by the Light of Christ, Ever Opening Flower, which has guest vocals by Matty Karki from Dismember. He's like doing vocals on it. Primal Breath, The Architects, fucking Blood of the Sunsets. Just so many great fucking songs on this album. And, the title track with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness, such an atmospheric and like ominous sounding song, and it's short. It's only like 2 minutes, but I don't know. I just love this At the Gates record. It's like this bridges the gap between the early stuff and the later, more commercial stuff, but it's still way more like technical and just has a dark and very disturbing atmosphere. So I think this is, like I said, not only is it better than the debut, I think it's pretty much the best stuff At the Gates ever did. So that's pick number 4 with Fear I Kiss the Burning pick number 5 with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness. All right, now we're going to get into the CDs, and we'll get into, let's see, we'll start with some black metal here. Immortal, Pure Holocaust. Again, now, so the first Immortal record, I love it. Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism. There's a heavy dose of Bathory worship on that record. This really sees Immortal kind of moving in their own direction, turning up the speed. This is one of their fastest records for sure. And you know, and as you can see, you get the pictures here. The boys, you know, rocking the corpse paint, things like that. You know, it has The Sun No Longer Rises. I really love that song. Frozen by Ice Winds is awesome. Summoning the Red Clouds and Holocaust Winds. Fuck, great fucking songs. So this is like, again, really aggressive, go for the throat. Immortal, you know, really jumping on the whole second wave aesthetic here, moving away from the kind of the Bathory worship. Great fucking record. Pick number 6. Okay. We'll go into the last thing that has anything to do with death metal here. The first record by this band is really good death metal. This album also sees them going in a much more melodic route. This is Sentenced North from Here. This record also is very unique, quite a bit different from the first record. The song My Sky is Darker Than Thine, Fields of Blood, Harvester of Hate, Northern Lights. So there's a lot more melody going on here. There's even, I don't know, I mean, I would almost dare say there's a hint of like kind of black metal. There's a lot more experimentation going on. I mean, obviously the next record after this band starts to really incorporate a lot of goth elements into their sound. But this is a really unique record. I don't really think there's another album that sounds like North from Here, and it's, you know, it's fucking phenomenal. So that is pick number 7. Okay, next, a band that was from New Orleans, kind of one of the seminal sludge bands. They were very short-lived, but their impact continues to be felt today. We've got Acid Bath with Pagan. Sorry, I always forget if it's Pagan Terrorist or Pagan Terrorism Tactics. I always want to call it Pagan Terrorist Tactics. So, you know, Acid Bath, a very unique band, kind of a mix of sludge and death metal and like almost like 90s. You know, Dax's vocals at times would be somewhat reminiscent of like Alice in Chains almost. Not that he sounds like Lane Staley, but I think it's just the mixture of kind of like that mournful guitar and kind of like a really weird scratchy guitar tone. But this album really sees the band stretching out and experimenting with interesting stuff. I mean, I love the first song, Pagan Love Song, and then Bleed Me an Ocean. Oh god, Graveflower. You got more aggressive songs like Diab Soleil and Locust Spawning, the weird creepy spoken word stuff, Old Skin. New Death Sensation, which just sounds almost like an alternative rock song. Venus Blue, which is like a fucking creepy serial killer ballad. 13 Fingers, New Corpse, I mean Dead Girl, which is again also like kind of almost like an alt-rock sounding song, but just really good. I mean the artwork alone, the fucking Jack Kevorkian painting of the rabbits like hatching this guy, like what looks like Jesus out of an egg. Fucking incredible. Incredible shit. You know? I mean, the disc art, you got, you know, the goat. You know, of course, Dax would go on to do a lot of other cool shit. Sammy went on to be in Crowbar and then Goat Horror as well. So, I fucking love this record. Like, if you're into kind of sludge and just kind of like, I don't know, a little more adventurous, like, if you kind of dig some of the darker kind of like alt-rock and blues and kind of like stuff, like, you might dig this. So, that would be number 8 there. Alright, and then moving away, and then we're getting more into, I mean, one of the biggest records of the early 90s. The Man, the Myth, the Legend, Danzig 2 Lucifuge here. So, this album, you know, the first Danzig album, I love it. The self-titled Danzig album is amazing. It really has that kind of like, it's like Black Sabbath meets Samhain, basically, and it's an incredible record. This album, though, kind of sees the band really making a name for themselves here. There's a picture of the gents there. It has probably one of my favorite Danzig songs of all time, the song "Tired of Being Alive." Fucking love that song. It also has Snakes of Christ, the blues song "Killer Wolf." I love the last three songs, "Blood and Tears," "Girl," and "Pain in the World." Fucking incredible songs. This really kind of cements the legacy of Danzig for me, the band, and the photo is just super cool too. Love it. So, number 9. And lastly, something that really has nothing to do with metal at all, the bona fide fucking goth post-punk classic here, Sisters of Mercy, Floodland. So, the first Sisters of Mercy album is, first and last and always. They were basically a full band at that point. They had, Andrew Eldritch and the rest of the band had a falling out in between that record and this, and all the other members left to start the Mission, which eventually became the Mission UK, and Andrew Eldritch kind of forged ahead. Not a whole lot to see inside the package here. With this kind of neoclassical, kind of, Richard Wagner influenced kind of goth record, bringing in also Patricia Morrison from the Gun Club to do female vocals and play bass. But I mean, there's a lot of stories about Patricia Morrison, as far as I know when Andrew Eldritch brought her in, he was really unhappy with all her bass playing, and I think ended up re-recording all her bass tracks. I don't think they used any of her bass tracks on this album. She did do all the female vocals, and she was in a lot of the videos, in a lot of promotional stuff. I think she ended up suing him because I think he basically tried to not pay her anything largely because he was like, well, you couldn't play bass to my exacting standards. And I think she actually won because her lawsuit, because I think they showed that he did really, feature her a lot in videos and a lot of the marketing. I mean, you can kind of see her. She's kind of in the background here. This album cover, if you've seen that Lamp of Murmur record, Submission and Slavery, they heavily rip off this artwork, and obviously it's a big influence on that record. This album, there's so many fucking great songs. You've got Dominion, Mother Russia, Lucretia, My Reflection, This Corrosion, all these fucking dance floor hits. Driven Like the Snow. Fuck, man. It's just, I don't know. This album just has this really intense atmosphere, and Andrew Eldritch's voice and everything just, it just really drives an indelible impression home. So those would be 10 albums, I think, 10 sophomore albums that are equal to, if not better than, the debuts by the bands that are included. So that's all I've got for you now. Congrats, Dennis, on the 2,000 subscribers, and I will see you all again soon in the Ninth Circle.